Imagine getting a call in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the police saying that someone you love has died, but something's not right with the story.
Yeah.
That's the nightmare that Maria Munoz's family had to go through.
This deep dive, we're going to be talking about a true crime story.
Yeah.
It really shook this small town in Texas,
Yeah.
and it made people really wonder about trust and betrayal,
Yeah.
and how medical knowledge can be dangerous.
We're going to be hearing actual recordings from police body cams.
Wow.
And even Maria's own cell phone.
Okay.
So we can really see what led up to her death.
Like we're right there
Yeah.
with the investigators.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting all of our info from a 48 Hours episode.
Okay.
They interviewed police, medical professionals, and people who are really close to Maria.
Makes sense.
So this deep dive, it's going to feel like you're right there with the investigators uncovering the truth.
That's key here because understanding the people in this case is just as important as the evidence.
Definitely.
We'll even get to hear Maria's own words from her journal entries.
Oh, wow.
Gives us a look into, what her life was like as things were going wrong.
So let's start by getting to know Maria.
Okay.
She was a mother of two, a loving wife.
Yeah.
And she wanted to become a nurse.
Oh, okay.
Her friends say she always put her family first, and that she was so warm, it made people want to be around her.
I bet.
I think you're going to connect with her story right away.
It's crazy because Maria's life looks so perfect on the outside.
Oh, really?
Loving family, beautiful house.
Yeah.
But beneath the surface, things weren't so good.
I see.
Her husband, Joel Peyote, he was a successful nurse anesthetist.
Okay.
But he started changing, like, a lot.
Oh, how so?
Yeah, not in a good way. He lost a bunch of weight out of nowhere.
Wait.
Started flirting with other women and spending tons of money they didn't have.
Oh, wow.
It was like he was a completely different person from the family man everybody thought he was.
Like a 180.
Around that same time, Maria found out that Joel was cheating on her with a coworker.
Oh, no.
Her name was Janet.
Okay.
This just devastated Maria, and she started writing about her heartbreak in her journal. These entries, they actually end up being really important evidence later on.
Okay.
But for now, it's like we get to see what was happening to Maria as her world was falling apart.
This is a sad story.
It is. It's unfortunately pretty common in cases of abuse in the home.
Right.
Like you see the power shifting and emotional manipulation and the isolation.
Yeah.
It's like all these red flags that get worse and worse over time.
And then the night Maria died.
Oh, gosh.
It's in the middle of the night. And police are rushing to Maria and Joel's house.
Oh, no.
Because Joel called 911.
Okay.
All frantic, saying that Maria overdosed.
On medication.
Yeah, on medication.
Okay.
The body cam footage from the officers shows just craziness.
Oh, wow.
Confusion everywhere.
Right.
Joel's acting really strange.
Thought so.
Sweating like crazy.
Okay.
His story keeps changing.
Oh.
He even says that Maria overdosed on a certain pill bottle that disappears and then it reappears.
Oh, wow.
So right away, the officers are like, wait a minute.
Something's not right.
Yeah, something's not right.
This doesn't make sense.
Doesn't add up.
Yeah.
What would you think,
Oh, my gosh. I'd be hearing this.
I'd be so suspicious.
Yeah, something just feels wrong.
Yeah, totally.
And then it gets even weirder. The autopsy shows that the drug that Joel said Maria overdosed on.
It's not even in her system.
What?
Instead, they find all these different strong medications.
What?
Including one called propofol.
Propofol? I don't know that one.
Right.
Is that a common thing?
No, it's a big red flag.
Okay.
Propofol is like a really strong anesthetic that they use in surgery.
Oh, wow.
So it's definitely not something you'd find just in a medicine cabinet.
Right. That's weird.
And this is where the investigation really takes a turn.
It focuses more on Joel, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Dr. John Hunninger,
Okay.
he's an anesthesiologist, and he actually used to be Joel's boss.
Oh, wow.
So he's called in to explain why finding propofol in Maria's system is such a big deal.
Right.
He explains that it has to be given through an IV.
Oh, okay.
And that even small amounts can be deadly.
Wow.
If you don't know what you're doing.
So this is serious stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Joel being a nurse anesthetist, would have had access to this drug.
Makes sense.
And he would have known how dangerous it is.
Right. So the investigation starts looking at Joel more closely.
Yeah, and remember his girlfriend, Janet.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the police interview her a second time.
Okay.
And she ends up making a deal with the prosecution.
What kind of deal?
They say they won't charge her.
Oh, okay.
For anything she might have been involved in.
Okay.
If she tells them what she knows.
So she gets immunity.
Exactly, immunity.
Yeah. Okay.
And what she tells them is shocking.
What does she say?
Well, Janet tells the police that Joel admitted to her that he injected Maria with something.
With what is?
To try to calm her down.
To calm her down.
But even worse.
Yeah.
She says that Joel brought drugs to her house.
To Janet's house?
Yeah.
Wow.
And guess what one of those drugs was?
It was propofol, wasn't it?
Yep, propofol.
Oh, my gosh.
So now investigators have a direct link.
Wow.
Between Joel and the drugs they found in Maria.
That's huge.
It is.
Okay, so we've got a husband acting all strange. These drugs that shouldn't be there.
Right.
And a girlfriend who says he confessed and that he might have gotten rid of evidence.
Exactly.
This isn't looking like an accident anymore.
It's not at all.
This is starting to look like he planned this whole thing.
And that's where the prosecution starts building their case against Joel.
So what do they think happened?
They think he planned Maria's death very carefully.
Oh, wow.
Using his medical knowledge to come up with a mix of drugs that would kill her.
So he used his knowledge to hurt her.
Yeah.
That's scary.
They even think he might have been drugging Maria's coffee all day.
Her coffee?
Yeah.
Leading up to her death?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How could he even do that?
That's what investigators are trying to figure out.
Yeah.
They have to piece together everything that happened.
Yeah.
Look at Maria's behavior in the days before she died.
Right.
And see if there are any signs that this was all planned.
This is getting really complicated.
It is.
I mean, it really is. It's kind of creepy. You know, think about how much planning went into this, if this theory's right.
Yeah.
But we got to remember.
Yeah.
It's just a theory at this point. The prosecution needs, solid proof.
Hard evidence.
Exactly.
So what evidence do they have?
Right.
We keep hearing about Maria's journal.
Right.
And these cell phone recordings. How do those fit into all of this?
Those personal accounts are going to be super important.
Okay.
Think about it. It's Maria's own voice talking about her life.
Yeah.
Her fears, all captured in her own words.
Wow.
These recordings are like a window into what she was going through.
It must have been awful.
Oh, yeah.
For her family and friends.
Absolutely.
Listen back to those recordings.
Yeah. Her best friend, Angela Montoya.
Yeah.
She talked about how much Maria loved Joel, but that she felt,
trapped.
Yes, trapped.
In this bad situation.
Yeah. And the journal entries and the recordings, they all back that up.
There's this one recording where Maria confronts Joel.
Oh, wow.
About leaving her.
Okay.
And she says she'll file for divorce if he walks out.
Okay.
And he just says,
what does he say?
All right, fine. You got it.
Wow. So cold.
Just totally cold.
Yeah.
No emotion.
That's chilling.
It is.
With that recording and the others,
right,
the prosecution could show the jury how much Joel was hurting Maria.
Emotionally.
Exactly.
Crushing her.
And they could show that he was controlling and manipulative.
This case really shows.
It does.
How being financially dependent on someone can make it almost impossible to leave an abusive relationship.
This happens a lot, unfortunately.
Yes.
People are afraid they won't have enough money.
Right.
They're worried about their kids. They don't want to cause a scene.
Yeah.
All those things can keep someone in danger.
So while the prosecution is building their case against Joel, what about the defense team?
Yeah, what are they doing?
Did they try to say that Maria's death was an accident?
That's what they tried to do. They said it was a tragic accident, that Maria was depressed, maybe using drugs.
Right.
They said Joel injected her to try to calm her down, not to kill her.
But how do they explain the propofol?
That's a good question.
That's not something you just give someone to relax.
Right. And that's where their story starts to fall apart.
Okay.
They couldn't really say why that drug was in Maria's body.
Right.
They did try to use the fact that there was Narcan.
Narcan.
You know, the drug that reverses opioid overdoses.
Yeah.
As proof that Joel was trying to save her.
So they're saying he was trying to help her.
That's their argument.
But if that were true,
yeah,
wouldn't he have called 911 right away?
Yeah, that's what the prosecution argued.
Yeah.
The timing just didn't make sense. There was too much time between when Joel said he found Maria and when he actually called for help.
That's suspicious.
And the mix of drugs in her system and the amounts.
Yeah.
It all pointed to something more sinister.
Like it was planned.
Exactly.
Seems like the defense was trying to come up with any story they could.
Anything.
To explain all of this.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really adding up.
It sounds like they were grasping at straws.
And that's exactly how the jury saw it.
Oh, really?
The trial was really hard.
I bet.
For everyone involved.
Yeah.
Imagine being in that courtroom.
Oh, my gosh.
Hearing Maria's voice in those recordings.
Yeah.
Knowing she was gone.
It must have been heartbreaking.
It was. It was tough on everyone.
What about Joel's coworkers?
Oh, yeah.
He was a respected nurse.
Right.
What did they think?
A lot of them were in total shock.
Yeah, they were probably devastated.
They came to the trial.
Okay.
To try and figure out.
To understand how this could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, how someone they knew.
Someone they worked with.
Could do something so terrible.
It really makes you think twice about who you trust.
It does.
One of his coworkers, Tina Doris, she said something really interesting.
What was that?
She said, he's not dumb. He's a smart guy. So I don't know if he just got caught up with his God complex, that he thought he was smarter than everyone and that he was going to outsmart them.
It's scary to think someone could be so arrogant.
And so calculated.
And it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
What if Maria hadn't kept that journal or recorded those conversations? Would anyone have ever known what really happened?
That's a good question.
It's really unsettling to think about.
It is.
It shows how important it is to keep a record of abuse.
To document everything.
Because sometimes that's the only way to get justice.
That's powerful.
Maria's journal and those recordings were crucial.
They were.
They helped the prosecution get a guilty verdict.
So they found him guilty.
The jury found Joel guilty.
Okay.
Of murder and tampering with evidence.
Wow.
He was sentenced to life in prison.
So the case is closed legally.
Yeah.
But what about, everyone who's been hurt by this?
What happened to them?
Yeah. What about Maria's family and friends?
That's what we're going to talk about in the final part of this deep dive.
So we'll be looking at how this trauma affects them in the long run and how Maria's case changed the community and the medical profession.
So we've spent the last two parts of this deep dive digging into this really sad story about manipulation and betrayal and murder.
It's heavy.
But as we get into this last part, I think we should shift gears a little.
Makes sense.
Instead of just focusing on what happened to Maria, what can we learn from all of this?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we can't bring Maria back.
We can't.
But we can try to use her case to make things better.
Yeah, to raise awareness.
To prevent something like this from happening again.
Exactly.
So where do we even begin?
Well, I think one of the things that really stood out to me in this case was how sneaky domestic abuse can be.
Right. It's not always like...
It's not always physical.
Black eyes and broken bones.
Right, exactly.
Like in Maria's case.
Yeah.
It was more...
it was more subtle.
Yeah, under the surface.
Yeah, the emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
The controlling her finances.
Right.
Isolating her from her friends and family.
Those are all forms of abuse.
They are.
And they can really eat away at a person.
They really do.
It makes you feel worthless. And it can make it so hard to leave.
That's why it's so important.
It is.
To recognize the signs.
Yeah, even when they're not so obvious. If you know someone who's being put down all the time.
Yeah.
Or controlled by their partner.
Right.
Or if they're being isolated from everyone else. Those are red flags.
Those are big red flags.
And you got to pay attention.
Can't ignore that.
And remember, abuse can happen to anyone.
It can.
It doesn't matter what your background is.
It doesn't matter how much money you have.
It doesn't matter how educated you are.
Nope.
Maria was a smart woman.
She was.
But she still got trapped in this horrible situation.
She did.
And that's why it's so important to create a culture where people feel safe coming forward.
Safe to tell their story.
If they're being abused.
Exactly.
They need to know that people will believe them.
And support them.
So often victims are afraid to speak up.
They are.
Because they're worried no one will take them seriously.
Or that they'll be blamed.
It's sad, but it happens all the time.
It does. And I think society doesn't help.
What do you mean?
Well, we have this idea of the perfect family.
Right.
And people are afraid to make that look bad.
To admit that things aren't okay?
Yeah. So they suffer in silence.
We need to get rid of that.
We do.
That pressure to keep everything hidden.
We got to make it okay to ask for help.
Yeah, to say, hey, things aren't good.
Exactly.
And to get support when you need it.
And I think we also need to talk about
Yeah.
how power plays into abusive relationships.
Right, like how Maria was financially dependent on Joel.
That made it much harder for her to leave.
And that's a really common problem.
It is.
Victims worry about money. They worry about taking care of their kids.
Right.
They don't want to lose their lifestyle.
And all of that can trap them.
It's like they're stuck.
We have to make sure
They do.
that victims have the resources to get out safely.
Like affordable childcare,
Yeah. Job training,
legal help.
safe places to stay.
Those things can make all the difference.
They really can.
And we can't forget about education.
Education's key.
We need to be teaching young people
Right, from a young age.
about healthy relationships.
What consent means.
Yeah, and the warning signs of abuse.
Imagine if this was part of school.
Yeah, like every kid learned about this stuff.
It could change everything.
You could help a whole generation.
Break the cycle of abuse.
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
But it's not just about teaching kids.
Right. We all have a responsibility here
We have to be aware
to recognize the signs
to speak up if we see something wrong.
and to support victims.
And I want to touch on how Maria's case affected the medical community.
Oh, yeah, that was huge.
Her husband was a nurse,
Right, a respected one.
and he used his medical knowledge to hurt her.
That's just, it's awful.
He really shook people up.
His colleagues couldn't believe it.
They were devastated.
They had to face the fact that someone they trusted
Someone they worked with.
to do something so terrible.
It made everyone realize that even people in healthcare
Yeah,
who are supposed to be healers
right.
can abuse their power.
And it showed that we need more safeguards
Yeah, in the healthcare
to
system.
prevent this from happening again.
So as we wrap up this deep dive
Okay.
into Maria's story,
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Even though her death was a tragedy,
It was.
her life, her story
Mm-hmm.
can be a force for good.
I like that.
We can learn from what happened,
We can talk about domestic abuse,
support victims,
advocate for better resources,
and that's how we honor Maria's memory.
and hopefully prevent other tragedies.
Thank you for joining us on this journey.
It's been a tough one,
It has.
but an important one.
And we hope that by sharing Maria's story,
Yeah.
we've gotten people talking
And thinking,
and inspired them to be part of the solution.
and if you or someone you know is going through something like this,
Yeah,
please remember you're not alone.
there's help out there.
Reach out to someone you trust
A friend, family, or you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
at 1-800-799-7233.